Hey everybody, I'm back. And my question today is, why are we always so tired? Well, I'm here drinking my trusty smoothie. So during the mid-afternoon, and it's 4 o'clock Pacific time, I usually take just a sip of whey protein powder. So you'll have to excuse me. I have to take a quick sip. Yum, yum, yum. And I don't put any fruit in it. I just take the straight whey protein powder, so I get 20 grams of protein, no extra hormones, a little bit of stevia. I don't even have to put fruit in there. That kind of gives me my lift that I need. This is a protein powder that I use. The reason I do this is because the highest grade of chocolate is in this particular protein powder that has a high degree of flavonols, number 1, and then number 2, it's made from A2 milk, which is considered to be the premier type of milk that's easiest on the digestion and is non-mutated. So, having said that, cheers. I have to take another quick little sip because it's been quite a day. And now I'm here to answer any and all of your questions about why am I always so tired. Now, it's a concept that I know is really important when you get into the menopausal phase of life, and I devote a whole chapter about being tired and taming the thyroid in Before the Change, because I truly believe that the thyroid, like the adrenals, which go hand in hand, is a key gland when it comes to energy. And I know many of you know that there are certain disruptors for thyroid function. One of those is heavy metals, like your fluoride, which is actually a chemical, perhaps too much estrogen, as well as your bromides that are out there in chlorine. But there are other aspects too that slow down your production of the active thyroid T3. And that's what I want to talk a little bit about right now. So it's a concept that I wrote about before the change, but all the new research is in this particular edition. And I'll just give you a little spoiler alert. And that is that there's a particular type of mineral. It's not really a heavy metal, but when it gets into excessive amounts, it becomes toxic to the thyroid. And all of those great thyroid books out there, and I know because I get all of them from the publishers, are wonderful because they talk about all the disruptors of the thyroid, from problems with Hashimoto's to hypothyroidism. However, what they're missing is the copper connection. Yes, the copper connection. And because I am a copperhead, and I've been writing about this and testing about it for years, I can tell you that if you have biounavailable copper, it's disturbing your T4 to T3 conversion. So, the question is, where are you getting all this copper that could be sitting on top of the thyroid? Well, one of the reasons that people have so much copper in their diets is because they're not having enough zinc, which is the balancing hormone. You need actually a little bit of zinc to kind of balance the thyroid, and if you've got too much copper, you're usually running too much estrogen. So copper is connected to too much estrogen, and estrogen dominance is another feature that I speak about in Before the Change. And if you don't have enough zinc, then you're not making enough progesterone. So the question you have to ask yourself is, where is that copper coming from, and how come we don't have enough zinc to balance it? Well, one of the reasons is copper water pipes, number 1, IUDs, number 2, amalgam fillings, number 3, because since the year 1976, there's a lot more copper in those amalgam fillings. And you also get it from your diet. So that if you're following a vegetarian or vegan diet, which I know could be very healthy for many of you, you really need to do a test to see if you're getting too much copper, because vegetarian foods are very high in copper and traditionally very, very low in zinc. So, if you're a vegan, think zinc. And if you're under a lot of stress, think zinc. Because second only to magnesium, you need zinc for all kinds of biological and biochemical processes. You get copper also from your nuts and your seeds, as well as avocado and teas. The darker the tea, the higher the copper. So I'm a big believer in making sure that you're balanced with zinc, you get rid of the excess copper, and you take a look at your multi to make sure that you don't have more than 2 milligrams of copper, which is just a smidgen. A lot of prenatals and a lot of postpartum pills that women take have at least 4 milligrams of copper, which is one of the reasons that their estrogen goes through the roof and the progesterone goes through the floor. So I also created a copper-free multi. It's called I think it's called the female multi, if I'm not mistaken. Very clever term. But it was the reason I really developed it is because I have always run a very high copper. People that run a high copper can be very tired with their mind racing the way mine does and not being able to sleep. They're very hyperactive, and I've always been a little bit on the hyperactive side, and a lot of kids run that because they're hyperactive, and it's not because they don't have enough Ritalin, it's because they've got too much copper. So many years ago, when I was a fledgling nutritionist, I was in Newtown, Connecticut. And I worked under a psychiatrist. One of the first things he did was he took a hair sample and found that all of his ADD and ADHD clients had too much copper. Since that time, which was in the mid-70s, I've done hair analysis, and over 80% of my clients run high copper and low zinc. We get rid of the copper that's excessive, make it bioavailable, shore up the adrenals as well as the ceruloplasmin, which is a copper-binding protein in the liver, and people seem to do so much better. They can now sleep, their hair doesn't fall out, their skin doesn't break out, and they're no longer hyperactive and no longer really, really tired with their mind racing and their body really lagging behind. So all these things I talk about in this book, Before the Change, which I'm told is now going to be available in the UK, thankfully. So I want to take some of your questions. I had a few of them that were emailed to me. Let me dive into those, and then Allie will read me the questions that are coming through live. So one of the questions that I think you'll all want to know about is healthy snacks for quick energy and my favorite supplements for energy. And Debbie Clem, thank you so much for asking that question. My favorite snack is having a little bit of whey protein, middle of the afternoon. I use whey because it's a precursor of glutathione. It contains the amino acids that make glutathione, so it's good for the liver. And as I say, I don't, for this particular smoothie, mid-afternoon, put any fruit in it. I just use plain water and the powder. So let me take another sip. Very good. That's what I do. Or instead of something sweet, I'm a big believer in pickles because Bubby's pickles are fermented, and that's very good for your gut. So I'm a big pickle lover. If you want something sweet, go to something sour. Or if you need a little crunch, I love the jicama sticks. Favorite supplements for energy? My favorite supplements for energy are the Pantothenol I talked about in that first Facebook Live. Remember, that's the active form of pantothenic acid, 1 to 2 grams daily. It'll act as an adaptogen if you got too much cortisol or not enough. It is really a wonderful supplement. I also like the Adrenal formula because I helped to formulate it. It's in a Unikey Health product. And the other things I like are rhodiola. I love rhodiola because that has helped so many of my clients when they need that get up and go in the morning. The brand that I like is one that I will post later. I believe it's a Meridan. I hope I'm saying the name of the company properly. They get the real stuff from Russia. It used to be known as Arctic root. We now know this as rhodiola, and it's picked at exactly the right time, and it is formulated exactly the way the original scientists decided that it was most effective. So, are there any other questions that we can go to now so that we can help any and all of these individuals that need to know why am I always so tired?
Well, first we have a couple of comments. Mark Cohen said it's great to see you, and I'm so glad that I have the opportunity to visit with you, and also said you're an amazing woman with great advice.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, thank you, Mark Cohen.
And Cindy White commented that she is copper toxic and she is getting a lot better with minerals.
Cindy White is very copper toxic. Well, Cindy, join the group. I was so copper toxic, I couldn't sleep for I can't tell you how long, until I met Paul Eck. So who is Paul Eck, you ask? Well, Paul Eck was this amazing chiropractor who practiced in Phoenix, Arizona. I was living in Sedona at the time. I met him, he analyzed my hair, and he said, Ann Louise, you are a copperhead. And I said, Dr. Eck, tell me what a copperhead is. And he said that a lot of women stockpiled copper rather than zinc, and that they were very artistic, very creative, very childlike. And he said, boy, you fit all those characteristics. And I didn't know if that was a compliment or what. But since that time, I've been measuring the minerals, taking a TMA of my hair. And it took me about 3 years, because I was that copper toxic, to get all of my minerals in balance. And for those of you that want just a quick fix, you've got to take a look at this book, Before the Change, because it's the only one that talks about the copper connection to many of the symptoms that seem to rear their ugly heads during perimenopause. And I tell you what you should do about them.
All right. Army, if I'm pronouncing their name right, is wondering what form of zinc you recommend.
So if this is Army, spell her name?
A-R-M-I.
Army. Hello, hello. I love zinc gluconate. It's my very favorite. Over the years, I've used lots of different zinc formulations. I've used the ionic minerals. I've used the ones under the tongue. But I'm really loving zinc gluconate the best. And I think depending upon where your coppers are, or your copper levels are, and you can also take a blood test, by the way. If those of you want to take a blood test, Request a Test has a copper panel. You'll do your copper, you'll do your zinc, and your ceruloplasmin, which is the enzyme that binds copper in the liver. You can take all those, and we can do an analysis for you if you contact Allie at AnnLouise.com. But having said that, I'm going to tell you, I love the gluconate. Now, when it comes to the foods, let's talk a little bit about the copper or the zinc-containing foods that'll balance the copper. So if you're on a vegetarian or vegan diet, I want you to really pay attention, because I think in so many ways it's probably very healthy for you, and I really, my heart goes out to you. However, I've seen many sick vegans in my day, and a lot of it is because of this copper-zinc imbalance and a little bit of more B12. They always need a little bit of B12. So what do we do for a vegan source of zinc? Pumpkin seeds. Yes, it's pumpkin seeds, and maybe a pumpkin seed protein. So get to love pumpkin seeds. It's a great source of bioavailable zinc, which, as I mentioned, is very important, like magnesium, to allow you to sleep. It's an antiviral, good for the bones, good for the hair, good for the skin. And it's also very good for your mind. Many years ago, there was a psychiatrist in Skillman, New Jersey, Dr. Carl Pfeiffer, that identified many problems of individuals because they had very little zinc and too high copper. He also did the hair analysis of you guys are too young, my whole team that's back there, but it was Charles Manson, and he's Charles Manson, who was you'll read about him online, killed all these people in the, I think it was 60s or 70s. In any event, Dr. Carl Pfeiffer did a hair analysis on him and said that he had the highest biounavailable copper of any individual, so it can definitely have an impact on your brain. Very important if you have hyperactive children, or if you're going through the change before the change. Because as I mentioned before, and I'll say this again, it's a repeating theme, too much copper can evidence itself in estrogen dominance.
All right, Terry is wondering where people can purchase Before the Change.
That's a good question. Now, where can they purchase it? I think on my Facebook page there is a purchase button. Buy now. I don't know what it says. Is it buy now?
It's buy
my team
now.
should know.
Yeah.
Buy now. So you can buy it now, but we will give you some little gifts if you pre-order. We have all kinds of little gifts. There's a workbook. We have a cookbook. Yes, there's a cookbook. Low copper, high zinc foods, that is what I've compiled for you in some recipes. And that is for Before the Change. You're just going to love the book. It's coming out September 5th, and I spent over a year doing all the latest correlation of the research, because it first came out in 1999. We went back to press 2004. Dr. Phil endorsed it, and then it's become a bestseller ever since. So yes, we would love you to buy that book, purchase the book. And when you do, you're welcome to join me on my Facebook page, which is right here, an Ann Louise Gittleman, PhD, CNS, and we may make a special group for Before the Change. So Allie will remember that I'm saying that.
All right, Tanya wants to know how to make copper bioavailable.
How do you make copper bioavailable? Well, Tanya, That is the $64,000 question. First, we have to find out where your zinc levels are, and then we have to put the finger in the dam. So that means that wherever the excess copper is coming from, we have to get rid of that. So this is the first thing that I do, and that means that we check to see if you have a copper IUD, but you will know that better than I, copper IUD, and check your fillings, because since 1976 there's a high copper amalgam that is part of your mercury amalgams, and many of you are getting it from your mouth. You can also be getting high copper from copper pipes. So we have to check that too. So you check all those environmental exogenous sources. That's number one. And then you do a tissue mineral analysis to see what else you need to do to get that copper bioavailable. We know that more magnesium is helpful, and a supplement that contains bile, because excess copper is dumped into the bile. So you want to excrete that in your system, which is where some of the supplements in this book come in handy. I tell you all about how to build better bile.
All right, Angela commented that she finds that instead of sweet, she often needs a protein snack, which I'd assume that's a good thing.
Yeah, I love protein snacks. That's why I keep drinking this, because there's 20 grams of protein, and I'm needing it this afternoon.
All right.
But there are not a lot of bars. Let's talk about protein for a minute. You know, whether you are a carnivore or not, you need protein, and you have to get untainted protein. I have not found a whole lot of bars out there that I'm crazy about. Most of them have too much sugar, to be quite honest with you, and if they have egg whites without the yolks, I think they can be highly allergic producing for sensitive individuals. So the concept of a good protein bar is one that I'm toying with in my mind, and if you think that we need yet another healthy protein bar in the market, just let me know. I would think we'd put a little monk fruit in there. I'm not a big believer in dates because they can be moldy, so something that is low glycemic very specifically, and I think that protein is your go-to snack. I even love deviled eggs in the middle of the afternoon.
Okay, Cheryl says she loves when you do these, and her question is, how does one know if they are low thyroid, adrenal, or have low DHEA, and what's the difference in how you feel?
So that's Cheryl's question?
Yes.
So that's a good question. How do you know if you are low thyroid?
Low thyroid, adrenal, or have low DHEA?
You can take traditional blood tests for your thyroid, and you can have us try to evaluate it or give you what the options are for the optimal values on my Facebook page, which currently is the Fat Flush Nation, because we talk about these things on that particular site. So that's number one. Number two, you can take your underarm temperature, and I talk about that self-health test in the book, and if it's a certain number, you take just the mean of 5 nights, and you're not menstruating, then we know you may be hypothyroid. There's a lot of subclinical hypothyroid out there, so we need to figure out what's what. So you can take a traditional test, you can do the underarm thyroid test, the Brody-Barnes test, or you do a tissue mineral analysis, and we can figure out both your thyroid and your adrenal. In terms of your DHEA, do a salivary hormone test, and if you're just interested in DHEA, you can get in touch with our office, and we can just send you the kit, and we'll just measure DHEA. We do DHEA, we do cortisol, we do, what else do we do? Testosterone, we do estrogen, estriol, the non-toxic estrogen, and progesterone.
All right, and she also wanted to know the difference in how you feel when you're low on these 3 things.
So when you're low on these things, you don't feel good. You have no energy, and you're going through hormonal shifts and changes, and your biochemistry gets upset because hormones kind of rule the roost. So if you're hypothyroid, you may be lacking, balance in your skin, dry skin. You could be constipated. Your hair may be falling out. The outer third of your eyebrow might be thinning. Depression, and you're not losing weight the way that you should, and you're doing everything right. And half of you are doing everything right, but you've got a problem with the thyroid. With the adrenals, you just don't have the real energy that you want, which can also be very similar to what happens with the thyroid. And you have ups and downs, cortisol ups and downs, which affect the way that you sleep. Your skin may be a little dull. Sometimes brown spots and coloring on the skin that doesn't belong there, red spots, brown spots, may have a lot to do with the adrenals, believe it or not. And what was the other issue that was brought up, Allie?
DHEA.
And DHEA, sometimes that's the anti-aging hormone, and that's secreted by the adrenals. So if your adrenals are low, the DHEA might also not be where it needs to be. The DHEA is the trickiest of all to really fix. You could take a little, the precursor for that is actually pregnenolone, which is the grandmother hormone. DHEA is considered the mother of all hormones, but that's sometimes iffy. The other thing you can do is do a topical DHEA cream, and the one that I have recommended, and I talk about it of course in the book, is I think it's called Health Solutions for Women, but the exact name will be here in Before the Change.
All right, Cheryl is also asking, can any of those being low cause high blood pressure?
Can any of those being low? In other words, if your thyroid is low?
Yeah, if your thyroid, if your adrenal, or your DHEA, or a combo, can that cause high blood pressure?
Absolutely. And if you don't have enough magnesium, you can have high blood pressure. And magnesium is the most crucial mineral in my estimation. And then, of course, comes zinc, number two, with all of this. So I would first look at your magnesium levels. We know from the research that up to I think it's like 1,000 milligrams of magnesium is very helpful for high blood pressure. And I give everybody a general rule of thumb, which is 5 milligrams of magnesium per pound of body weight. So I'd look to magnesium. I'd make sure that every single one of your meals to really rectify your adrenals, Cheryl, your thyroid, your DHEA, you have the right fats, the right protein, and the right friendly carbohydrates. Sometimes grains are not accepted well, especially if you've got an issue with your thyroid, particularly gluten because of the gliadin, which the thyroid doesn't like. And I do more starches, friendly starches, squash and sweet potatoes and yams rather than a whole lot of grains, which we're finding have problems either with mold or the mold residues and byproducts, which are mycotoxins.
Okay, Margaret is looking for tips for energy after menopause.
So Margaret, after menopause, well, I'm there, so I know what to tell you, at least from what I've found with myself and so many of the clients that I've worked with. The nice thing about being after menopause, in my position, is that I've been through every stage before, whether it was PMS, whether it was peri, whether it was during, and then after. And I've had the opportunity, because I'm at this age and stage of the game, I'm no longer 30 years old or 40 years old, to say that there's certain tricks of the trade that really work. So when it comes to energy, you've got to get your adrenals and your thyroid balanced. If you don't want to take a hormonal replacement, bioidentical or otherwise, for your adrenals, my go-to favorite, I'll say it again, is pantethine. Pantothenic acid is the anti-stress and the energy vitamin. So pantethine, I personally use 1,000 milligrams in the morning and another 1,000 at lunch. So I'm loving those two together. The other things for energy are that you don't use foods that zap your energy. I'm not a huge believer in too much coffee. I really feel for many of you, 1 cup is a tonic, but too much is a toxin. So 1 cup of coffee a day. I'm in love with a little bit of hibiscus. You'll see that I'm introducing that in a new project that will be released next year. Hibiscus, magnificent tea for you. And another one called Rooibos, Rooibos, very high in SOD, which is tremendously anti-aging.
Gisela asks, does thyroid disease cause inflammation in the body?
Gisela,
I believe.
Spelled Gisela's name.
Gisela.
Gisela. It's a very pretty name. I hope we're pronouncing it correctly. If not, just forgive us. does thyroid disease, most definitely, thyroid disease or thyroid dysfunction will cause inflammation. And as we know, inflammation is the underlying byproduct that creates most disease. So we've got to really focus on your thyroid, get it healthy. If you've got issues with your teeth, just remember this. If you have a lot of fillings that are a mixed group of metals, if you have root canals, if you've had teeth that have been removed, you've got to see a biological dentist to make sure there's no hidden dental infections that could be just dripping into your system with anaerobic bacteria affecting that thyroid. So if you've exhausted everything and you do everything I say and before the change and there's still an issue, then get thee to a biological dentist. We can give you names of my 2 favorite dentists that are in the great state of Texas, because they're the guys that I would travel all over the country to see. And we've got to just check that there's nothing hidden that's hidden in your mouth, because the thyroid is a real close gland to what's in the mouth. So we need to make sure there's no metal there that's not reacting properly, there's no hidden bacterial infection, and that there's nothing brewing with a root canal, whether it's 10 years old or you just received it. I hope that helps, Gisela.
Nancy says, I am exhausted, postmenopausal, low thyroid, on T3 and T4, no grains, no sugars except fruit, clean proteins, stress is overwhelming, what can I do?
And this is Nancy?
Nancy Williamson.
So, all right, so Nancy, you sounds like you're doing everything right. I mean, that sounds totally like you're doing everything right. So, are you taking, number one, you're taking selenium. So let's just go through the basics. So when you've got a T4, T3 issue there, and apparently there's a T4, T3 issue, you'll have to read that again to me.
She says low thyroid on T3 and T4.
Okay, so you got to measure your T3 and T4. I don't care if you're on it. I want to see what's going on with T3 and T4. I want to see those numbers really up to where they need to be. Take another blood test. We're happy to work with you, but you should be able to look up what the optimum levels are for T3 most specifically. And if you're doing everything right but not taking bile, I just need you to know that having the proper kind of bile acids and supplements in the system have been found to be very helpful in creating more energy and helping you lose weight. So the conversion from T4 to T3 is very important. Sometimes you need iodine if you have Hashimoto's. Does Nancy have Hashimoto's from that question?
She didn't say, but she did say she's taking selenium.
All right, selenium, that's a thumbs up. Selenium is very important, but so is bile acids like Bile Builder. She should try some Bile Builder. I certainly will. Tell everybody to do that because you need that to make sure that the T3 is actually activated. It's something nobody talks about. And we've got to see where your copper is, my dear. You need to do a tissue mineral analysis, a hair analysis, and not just one. You'll probably need 2 because many people have hidden copper, and we're able to look at that and tell you if you've got a hidden copper problem. So if you're doing everything right, you got to look deeper. As I write about in Before the Change, we need to look at your copper and get you some bile.
Robin says, can adrenal issues cause low blood pressure?
Yes, Robin, most definitely. And I know this because I have had low blood pressure all of my adult life. And very taxed adrenals because I've always been a bit of an overachiever. So what you do is you support those adrenals. And what are the things that we do? Well, we got the pantethine that I talk about. There's a formula that I've made called the Adrenal formula, or rhodiola. I'm going to tell you those are my top 3. I'm familiar with everything else on the market. My clients have used it. I have used it. I've researched it. There's some other wonderful things, but I'm not sure of the quality and the integrity of some of the brands out there, particularly if they're from other countries. So I have concerns. So those 3 things you need to do. And if you're really concerned, then you get in touch with our office or somebody that you also trust and do an adrenal test. It's an adrenal panel, and we'll test and see for the 4 times during the day when the adrenal circadian rhythm is really activated where your levels are. I found that I needed something in the morning, which is why I go to my pantethine first thing in the morning, and for many months I took rhodiola because it was so adaptogenic. So we can do that for you, but you know, one size doesn't fit all. I'm giving you what's been most commonly helpful to my clients for 30 years. I don't just look on the internet and see what the latest, greatest information is. I'm telling you what really works for most people. And I'm hopeful that you'll take the information and just try it on for size.
Okay, Robin has a few more questions, but really
well,
quick.
Robin, these are questions that I think everybody could benefit from. That's good.
Really quick, we will go back to, we have a question from Cheryl. Can you explain what Unique's Bile Builder is?
So Unique's Bile Builder, if somebody can run and get me a Bile Builder, I have a team here, like Jan.
Go get Bile Builder.
Jan could run and get me the Bile Builder. Thank you. This is what we love when we do something live. It's a product that I formulated. Why did I formulate it? Because everybody was having problems in elimination and detoxification, and half the world doesn't have a gallbladder. So what happens when you don't have a gallbladder? You're not secreting enough bile when you're eating certain foods, particularly fatty foods, and your bile kind of gets disturbed and the reserve gets used up because you have a continual trickling down from the liver into the gut. So I created this product not just for losing weight, which people do, but also because it's important for detoxification. So this is the Bile Builder. I created it. It's my baby. I take full responsibility, full disclosure. It's got choline, 500 milligrams in 2 capsules, lipase, 50 milligrams, which is a digestive enzyme secreted by the pancreas, taurine, which helps with bile acids, 250 milligrams, ox bile, 100 milligrams, beetroot and stone root, which is very helpful to help support the elimination of stones like gallstones. So this is what we use. It's for detoxification. I suggest this with anybody that has MTHFR issue. If you have heavy metals and you're not taking something for your gallbladder, you're missing the boat. You need something like Bile Builder. And of course, I describe this in great detail. I give you the science behind it, the studies, the journals in this new book, which you know we'd love you to buy, which is Before the Change. End of commercial. Thank you.
She didn't specify if she's taking Unique's, but Julie asks what to do if taking bile makes you feel sick.
I don't know what you're taking, my dear Julie. I really don't. We don't normally get that with this particular product because we combine it with taurine and beetroot. So I would use up what you have, and I would then approach something like this product or get something that matches the ingredient listing. Most people feel like $1 million, and when they're constipated, the use of this product is much more effective than fiber because bile is very lubricating to the gut.
Going back to Robin's questions, is green tea okay instead of coffee with adrenal fatigue, and what teas/coffees do you recommend?
I am the only nutritionist out there that's going to tell you that I don't really like green tea, and everybody will tell me the reason why they do, but I know that. Green tea can be a high bioaccumulator of fluoride, and what does fluoride do? Even organic, because it picks it up from the soil, it picks it up because of the sprays that may be surrounding the tea. Tea loves to accumulate fluoride, period. That can affect the thyroid. So instead of green tea, let's do hibiscus tea, because I don't find that it's from the tea plant itself. We do hibiscus or rooibos, R-O-O-I-B-O-S, rooibos tea, which is from South Africa, I believe, very high in antioxidants, and it's the only source of SOD that can actually be metabolized by your body. So I'm in love with those two teas, peppermint tea, anything but something from the tea plant. That goes for black tea, green tea, I'm very sorry to say, and even white tea.
Final question from Robin is, for diet, would a low-carb, high-fat, medium-protein diet be a good idea?
Yes, high-fat if you're taking the Bile Builder. If not, you need to be taking something to get rid of the fat. I mean, everybody's talking about keto. I know about keto. I worked closely with Dr. Atkins in all of those years, in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. So what I'm going to tell you is if you're eating a lot of fatty foods because you're primal or you're ketogenic or you're paleo, you need to adopt a modified keto diet if that's your preference and you don't need it for a real support for your immune system, and take something like Bile Builder or get the product and look at the ingredients and just match the ingredients. You need to be able to do something with all that fat that's coming into your system. So yes, I'm in favor of high fat. My before the change and fat flush diets are all the right kind of fats. They're the friendly carbohydrates. They're grain-free carbohydrates for the most part. We have seed-like grains in phase 3, which is what I also recommend in before the change. And we also have the right kind of protein. So if you're a vegan, we give you what I think is healthy. If you're an omnivore, then we tell you the best kinds of grass-fed meats. We like wild fish once or twice a week. And we also love non-GMO tofu once or twice a week. You know, we keep that to a bare minimum.
Ada would like to know your opinion of essential oils for health issues.
Oh, Ada, I love essential oils. I've been involved with essential oils for years, for decades really. Love most of those essential oils. And I know that one of my dear friends is coming out with a book, I think it's next year. So I'm very pleased about that. And I'll let you know when that comes out. Of course, my favorite essential oils, believe it or not, are those that I've written about in my Fat Flush programs. And I like to use a very small amount, 1 to 2 to 3 drops in a tub full of water to get rid of cellulite. I love cypress. That's one of the wonderful ones for the lymphatic system. Love cypress, love grapefruit. I'm also in love, of course, with the right kind of frankincense, and I know there's some companies, and there are great essential oil companies out there. I take my hat off to many of them that have really high-quality oils. Loving frankincense. Myrrh, really good for adhesions. It's very expensive, but very good for adhesions, as well as Idaho birch.
We're back with Nancy. She's wondering if you have any wisdom for her husband, who is 70 and was just diagnosed with prostate cancer. Okay, so for anybody that has cancer, if I had cancer, Nancy, if I had cancer, here's what I would do. I'd try to shore up the immune system, and please, you know, you've got to look into your heart. Your husband has to decide what he wants to do. I would never tell you not to do or go the conventional medical route if that's his desire. But on the nutritional side, what I would do is make sure that his diet and his environment was mold-free. There seems to be a connection between certain types of cancer, including prostate cancer, and mold and fungus. So let's get him on a mold and fungal-free diet, which could be a ketogenic diet with proper supplementation like Bile Builder. I would also suggest that we do high vitamin C. Love high vitamin C. I hope the IVs are still available, and you've got to get a non-corn-based vitamin C in the IV bag. And then lastly, let's follow the protocol, which we can send you, because I don't remember it offhand, of Nicholas Gonzalez, that had an outstanding record for healing many kinds of cancer. And that's with the pancreatic enzymes that I believe you can get from, the company used to be, I think it's Nutritional Ecology that has it out. It was created by Nicholas Gonzalez. He's got to be ready to take a whole bunch of pancreatic enzymes which can help to digest the cancer. And perhaps some coffee enemas as well, once or twice a week. But he has to be ready to be a warrior, an invincible warrior, to get control of this thing. Cheryl is wondering where your office is located.
Well, Cheryl, my office is located in, where am I now? In Idaho.
North Idaho.
We're in North Idaho. Yes, I'm in North Idaho, but I work very much over the phone. I can do Skype, we do over the phone, so I still work with a select group of clients and patients to try to help them along the way. And I have to tell you, I've been at this for many years. And it's a challenge in this day and age because the environment is much more toxic, and you can't put your head in the sand and say it isn't. And people read so much from this one and that one, they get very confused. So it's a little bit more challenging. What used to take 3 weeks to resolve now takes 3 months. So just be ready for some changes in lifestyle, perhaps some supplementation and more testing, and we're happy to work with you.
Gisela asks, what causes puffy eyelids and dark reddish under eye circles?
So under eye circles can be a number of things. It could be allergies, which can also be created by parasites. So parasites are also a real issue with that. So you need to be tested. How do we test? Or you just take the supplements that are really important for getting rid of parasites. There's one called My Colon Cleansing Kit, which are actually 2 particular supplements that you can use, or contact Unikey Health Systems. They're the distribution center that I have worked with since I've been in business for many, many years, and since they've been in business, and they will give you the My Colon Cleansing Kit. They can sell that to you, or you can do a full GI panel and we'll test for it. Do it around the full moon, 2 days before, the day of, or 2 days after. Parasites usually are much more activated at that time. That's just a little secret from all of the herbalists that I have known over the years.
Christina asks if you recommend hydrocolon cleanses and if that helps with H. pylori bacteria and Clostridium bacteria.
So Adrian's asking a good question. I'm a big believer in colon cleansing. You've got to find, of course, a practitioner that is qualified for colon cleansing, making sure that their speculums are cleansed and that they're disposable and that they use filtered water. I don't know if I think that taking a colonic is going to help H. pylori, or that it'll help, was it Clostridium?
Yes.
Clostridium. But what might help that would be mastic gum, which I'm a big believer of. Mastic gum, you can get it at the health food store morning and night. And for Clostridium, Dr. O'Hara's Probiotic 12 Plus.
Robin is asking how much fruit you recommend in a day.
I'm not a big fruit lover. I'm just not. And maybe that goes against the grain. And that's because I see so many people that have sugar metabolism issues or yeast issues or fungal issues. Once you get rid of the yeast and fungal issues, eat all the fruit you want. But so many people do not. They still have these underlying infections. I'm a big believer in 2 to 3 a day. I like low glycemic and low fructose because with the testing that we've done, there are more and more people that are fructose sensitive. I think we're taking in about 73 grams of fructose a day, and I'd like to see that much lowered. So what does that mean? It means a half a cup of berries. If you can't lose weight, instead of a cup of berries in your daily smoothie, put a half a cup in, half a cup. I'm also liking, I love plums. I think plums are really underrated with people. I love a nectarine. Half a grapefruit, if you've got no contraindications, will help you lose weight tremendously because of the beneficial effect of leptin. So there's lots to choose from, and it's all in the book.
Beatrice is experiencing fat gain on her upper back and triceps after menopause. Do you have any advice for her?
Beatrice, you know, menopause and post-menopause does strange things. So I'm just wondering if you're taking the right essential fats. That would be your GLA. I'm a big believer in omega-6, your omega-3s, which would be either your fish oil, your krill, or your flax oil. And I would also try some CLA, which seems to be very important for abdominal fat and other fatty deposits. That would be 3 grams of CLA on a daily basis, GLA 360 milligrams, and 1 to 2 grams of omega-3s. I would get those omega-3s revved up. And if you need a test to do so to figure out exactly what your levels are, I can refer you out to that too. I hope that helps, Beatrice.
Patty would like to know if you can recommend anything for tingling in the hands and feet.
Tingling in the hands and feet. Well, we've got to know where that's coming from. So let's make sure that there's no neck problem with the tingling. Let's make sure there's no it's a mechanical or a structural issue. You've got to really rule that out. And the same thing with the lower back and the feet. If that's the case, then we need to also look at our B12 levels, or just take a B12, make sure it's a methylated B12, maybe 1 to 2 mcgs a day. And last but not least, there's a nutrient called benfotiamine at 300 milligrams. I think that's the amount. 300 milligrams that could be very helpful. So you just Google all this, you'll see what I'm saying. Thank you for that question, because that's becoming a very predominant issue.
Okay, we have 3 more questions on here that we're going to get to before we wrap up today.
Thank you.
The first one is from Christine. She says she's currently taking selenium, D5000, B complex, C, enzymes and probiotics. She has Hashimoto's, no meds, body did not bad, symptoms, hypo, going to take hormone test and to start Bile builder, problems with digestion, energy, headaches. She wants to lose the nonstop weight she keeps putting on and is wondering if GLA or fat flush supplements are too much to add to that list or any other recommendations.
She's got quite a long list.
Yeah.
I can't say, I don't want to add insult to injury, but she's gaining weight. Is this the big issue here?
It sounds like it. Headaches.
So we have headaches and issues. Okay, so why don't we do a tissue mineral analysis, see what's going on with your copper? So let's get back to what I talked about. If there's too much copper, it's going to affect every single one of these symptoms. So we've got to do a test. So let's do a tissue mineral analysis. Please get in touch with our office, or call the Unikey people, or look online under lifestyle, I think, Allie, you said.
Correct,
With
yes.
it. Yeah, we've got to know what's going on with your copper. You got to think outside the box. You're all doing everything right. You're taking your selenium. You're on hypothyroid medication. You're doing some T4, maybe some T3, maybe some Armor, Nature Thyroid. You're doing everything you know to do. Look outside the box because the answer is out there. That's where Bile builder and that's where copper assessment has to come in handy.
Hannah asks, can you recommend what steps to take to rebuild immunity and gut after long-term antibiotic use for Lyme disease?
Oh, that's a good question. So Hannah wants to rebuild immunity.
Correct.
And the gut.
Yep.
So you've got to get a really good probiotic to do so, as I think you know, and a good prebiotic. All that's very important. So eating foods like kimchi, which is the very healthiest way to make sauerkraut. Go to the Koreans, they know. South Koreans know. Kimchi, a very great food in terms of probiotics. Dr. O'Hara's Probiotics 12+, they're the big guns I always relate to and resort to when it comes to rebuilding the gut. And in terms of immunity, we have to figure out what's affecting your immunity. I'm not just going to build it up without knowing, do you have parasites, do you have heavy metals, do you have radiation, do you have mold? So doing a super cleanse or a GI panel through Unikey would help us tremendously, and then we can work with you, because anytime you do that testing, my office, with the exception of the TMAs, which already comes with a description and gives you information about what to do for all these various heavy metals and imbalances, but I will send you a personal letter so we'll know what's going on. So let's try that. Let's do a test, and then we're not guessing. I hope that's amenable.
All right, this is our last question today.
Almost
Thank you
last.
all so much for submitting them.
Thank you.
And this is from, I believe I'm pronouncing it correctly, Charity. She says, hi, I'm 39, have given birth to 6 children.
Ooh, congratulations to you.
We homeschool and own a business. I'm exhausted all the time, hot flashes, anxiety, wondering if I should take the hormone test through you and get some recommendations for nutrients. I feel miserable and grumpy most of the time.
Well, you've been through a lot. Every child takes something from you, and a lot of people do not have enough progesterone in their systems or the precursors. Take the test. We can definitely help you. Those are 6 elements that you'd be testing for. I know the answer is going to lie in the adrenals at this point. How old is our gal here?
39.
Oh, so I mean that's kind of a crossover age. So we need to test for that. You can get an adrenal supplement. I've given you the best 3. We can review them now. That's either the Adrenal formula, which is a Unikey product that I formulated, so I know it works. It's been on the market for nearly 20 years. Or you can do the Pantethine, or last but not least the Rhodiola. And then we have to see what's going on with the thyroid. And that would be a test you can take under your arm. So there are a lot of self-help tests that are listed in here. Was that it for your question?
That was the last question.
So I have 2 more, 2 more that were sent in, and I know they're going to help you. So let me just read them. From Lynn Tapper, chronic fatigue. Her niece has it. What to do for it? This gal wakes up tired, and should she take hydrochloric acid or bile acid? So let me just end with chronic fatigue. Because why am I always so tired? Well, some people have chronic fatigue. Could it be Epstein-Barr, as some have suggested? Most definitely, but we all have titers for Epstein-Barr. Not everybody is affected by them. What I would do for chronic fatigue that is non-resolving, and if you've done everything else right with the adrenals and the thyroid, is I would test for parasites, because there's one particular parasite that we have found to be part and parcel of chronic fatigue, and it's Giardia. So either you test for it with one of those GI panels that I keep talking about, or you could just start taking the particular formula here would be Para-Key, which has these specific herbs that would get at these microscopic invaders. But a lot of Giardia can masquerade as chronic fatigue and a whole slew of other conditions. So on that note, I'm going to thank everybody. My voice is going. I need more of my instant drink, my instant whey protein, and just remind you, we'd love to have you pre-purchase the Before the Change so we can give you all of our gifts and then welcome you into our community. So thank you so much. We'll see you next week, and we're going to talk about the sugar blues.